and I created a nonprofit called Advancing Warriors International. So we come alongside veterans, military, and first responders to help equip them with tools moving forward. We see a lot of darkness within the military. First responders see it on a daily basis, and it's hard to handle it by yourselves. And so we want to create an authentic community where people can lock arms together and challenge each other and be equipped with what they need to thrive and not just be in survival mode or just get through the day.
Now, why did you decide to join the military? What was your purpose behind that?
So when I was like 12, I decided I'm going to be a physician in the Air Force, and I got there. I asked my uncle what branch to join, and he's like, join the Air Force. They treat them the best. So that's why I joined the Air Force. Why I started Advancing Warriors is a little bit different, because I was on my way. I was doing training as a child and adolescent psychiatrist through the Air Force in the Children's Hospital in Aurora. And I was 11 months in, or actually 13 months in, and I had a hiking accident where I had a traumatic brain injury. And so after that, within about a month, I was raped. And then I had 4 concussions within that year. So it was just like one thing after another after another. I couldn't read for 2.5 years without getting a migraine, like severe intractable migraines. I started having seizures, like it was just a mess. And I didn't realize that I had put all of these achievements in place as my identity. And when I didn't have any of that, it was just completely stripped. And so I was just left with nothing. The only thing that got me through was my faith. That even in the midst of that darkness, when I didn't have anything left to give, I knew God was there with me, loving me through it. When I couldn't give anything back to him, this unconditional love. And I hadn't really experienced that prior, the power of it, because I was still kind of putting things in place saying, well, I can do this for you, or I can do this for you, or trying to prove my worth in some way. And so when I was stripped and I couldn't prove anything, then I realized, well, I'm truly unconditionally loved. And so that journey really, I was kind of a slave driver for myself, right? Like I'm pushing one goal to another. Like I must be a physician, getting through med school, getting through residency, getting through all of this stuff, officer training, being the best officer I could be. And then it was all gone. And so I realized that life isn't about proving your worth. And so, and within the foundation of this program, we talk about the Bible and scripture and how the foundation is unconditional love and acceptance, no matter who you are, where you've come from, what you've done, that God's love for you doesn't change, and you can tap into that and be fueled by that instead of being fueled by, well, what can I do and how can I prove my worth? Because that's exhausting, and I lived through that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I developed this program, was because I was extremely isolated during my healing process, during that 2.5 years, and I needed a group. I needed my brothers and sisters to come alongside me and to help me through it and walk with me and to equip me and encourage me. Mm-hmm. So the goal of this program, when I was going through my healing, all I could do was really like listen to podcasts or listen to the Bible on the Bible app. And so I just was listening to some similar scripture, similar themes, and I put them in place in the Tribe program to help people identify what are my barriers to growth and resilience and to overcoming these things. What can I start chipping away at, because it's a community, I'm in a community of love, and I can face that darkness because the love is greater. And then developing an action plan, being empowered and having that accountability of your brothers and sisters to help you through and to make changes and to combat any darkness or any of the stressors, or whether it's relational or physical health or psychological or any of those kind of things. So that's why I created this, was to provide that environment where people can feel like they're loved, they belong, they don't have to be in isolation. During my journey, I had depression, I had PTSD, I had suicidal thoughts. And when I was in isolation, that's when it's the worst. And so this is one of the biggest ways to combat suicide, the suicide epidemic in veterans and first responders, is to have that community.
I want to say that it's amazing what you do, from going through what you have experienced and being in that dark place, that isolated place, isolation in mind and literally, and being able to come out in a brighter way and bring this way of, like, I don't know even what to say, like, it's just profound what you do, and I'm sure it's helping multiple people, and I hope you continue to do this work. And obviously I know we'll get to how it's helped other people in this room, but I'm sure there's multiple out there that you have helped and will continue to help. And it's amazing to come from where you've come and to do what you're doing now, to be able to help others heal and inspire them to know that they know their worth. Mm-hmm. And any of that depression you had, did you ever have that before the military, or was it after the accident?
Yeah, it's right after the accident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I transitioned about 5 years ago out of the military and just really felt lost and isolated and alone, and just not connected to anyone or anything. And I kind of lost a little bit of my identity that I had for so long in the military, being surrounded with people that were similar minded and kind of on the same task purpose, all fighting in the same direction for the same task purpose reason. And I felt like I lost that when I transitioned out of the military, and I was just really searching, where is there kind of a place to go, or a group that I can connect back with like-minded people that I can really just pour back into and kind of live out the struggles of daily life and some of the transitional struggles I had coming out of the military. And Tribe and Advancing Warriors was that absolute perfect fit for me to fall back into, to be connected back with a veteran group, connected back with a group of believers that were all searching for something very similar and trying to regain that purpose and that motivation and that direction in their life. And I'm just incredibly grateful for this program and what it's done for me and for a lot of other people that have gone through it as well.
Community is a huge piece to it, because I can have someone, okay, join this group and come join these brothers and sisters, where there's immediate camaraderie within the veteran population, first responders, because they know where their people have come from. And Mike, Rick, Paul, Rhianon, they can come alongside someone and say, oh wow, you're struggling with this. Let me come walk alongside you and help. Mm-hmm. And so they're really showing them that they're loved, that they don't have to be isolated. Because one of the biggest lies that people believe is people would be better off without me. Mm-hmm. And that they're worthless or hopeless. And so we're helping them see that that's a lie, yeah, and that there's a greater purpose out there for them, a greater mission, and there's a greater love that's greater than any of those lies.
Yeah.
One thing I found is that, and I want to kind of preference this, it's going to kind of go somewhere, but hopefully you guys can follow me. When you have a fire, when you start a fire, there's some things that you need. You need a flammable source, you need oxygen, and you need heat to make a fire go. Well, with isolation, the thing that puts out a fire is water, different components, a fire extinguisher. The thing that puts away isolationism is community. If you don't have that community, the flames are just gonna get out of control, and it's gonna get lost. And you're gonna feel like, I have no hope. There's nothing left for me. I have nowhere to turn. So what Ellie's done, is doing a great job at, is taking away that isolation, introducing that person to community. And you're doing a great job.
And is that why you got involved? Because did you feel isolated, or what? What's your story?
So oh man, where do I start? I'm a combat veteran. I lost a good friend of mine in combat. It's not something I like to talk about, and I don't. But my stuff came about when I was with the police department. I was working City Park on July 24th, 2012. I was on duty that day. I had just left the park, and I was maybe 5-10 minutes out from leaving the park, and a call came out on the radio that, hey, we got a big fight over here. We need more covered cars. So I turned around and was headed back over to that area, and the call came out. Step up our cover. We got 100 people that are fighting. And then, so I was pretty close. I was maybe a half a mile from the park. And I turned on my lights and my siren, and I went over to the park. And as I'm driving through to where these officers were at, I start hearing gunfire. And then I heard gunshots, we got an officer down. And so I went over there, and me and some other officers arrested the suspect. And I went back to my car, and as I'm going back to my car to put my AR-15 in the trunk of my car, I see the ambulance crew loading my friend into the ambulance. She had a 13-year-old daughter, gunshot wound to the head, killed her before she even hit the ground. And but we transported her to the hospital, and they pronounced her dead. Well, I was never the same after that. And so I became hostile, suicidal. I was at the end of my rope. I had no hope because I was angry, and I had actually had the means to end my life in my hand, pointing at my head. And just something just said, this ain't the answer. And so I went and got help, talked to my sergeant. They suggested that I talk to the psychologist that worked with the department. And I found this organization called Operation Restored Warrior that takes veterans, combat veterans, and they put them in a 5-day intensive program that really kind of introduces them to Jesus and to their heart for the first time for a lot of these guys. These guys are dudes that have seen some really crazy stuff, been in Humvees that have exploded, lost a lot of friends, so I went through that program with those guys, and really for the first time found the hope that I was missing out on. I kind of grew up in a church. I always had I believed in God, but it wasn't really personal until I went through Operation Restored Warrior. Then it became personal. Then I found that, my whole life I had heard Jesus is, a list of rules, and Jesus is do's and don'ts, and Jesus is, religion. And when I went through Operation Restored Warrior, it was like, Jesus isn't any of those things, and he just wants a relationship with you. And the way that it was brought to me was that, if you look at him and his life, it wasn't about him being religious. He was not overly religious. He was Jewish, but he was not overly religious. His whole thing is his relationship with him and his Father. That's the whole thing. That's the key. And how he wants to be a part of us, and how he wants us to rely on him like he relies on his Father.
It wasn't just a military basis to be able to connect to my thoughts again. It was God. It was that we were headed towards the same purpose, and I knew that they could use the same kit gloves that Jesus used with me, to help restore my heart and help restore my relationship with God. As a loving father, which I had never seen. So many of us from the military, we go into the military because there's nothing. I wanted to get out of the ghetto. I wanted to have something. I wanted to be the golden girl who got out of the ghetto and had it all. And that's not where I ended up. Everything crashed, and that was a really hard thing for me too, because my assault happened within 3 weeks of me being at my first duty station. So not only that, then I had to go home to my husband, who was a service member. So it wrecked our marriage and our relationship because we did deviate from what God had planned for our marriage. And then being a spouse for 17 years, seeing how it was when you guys came home, you know, on the other side of it, and just knowing there was something missing, because it was like, here's this guy, he was amazing, you know, he was all ho-ho out to get it, you know, and so was I was like, be all you can be. And that's what I wanted, and I left with nothing, because I was hard. My heart was so hard towards everyone. I came from, you know, a family of poverty, every kind of abuse you can think of, because my mom was like 3rd generation abuse, addiction, you know, there wasn't, you know, using was a rite of passage, you know, in my family. You were like set up to just let the world devour you. And a lot of it was, you know, being several generations military and things like that. I had this idealistic idea of what men were. And when all this happened, it was ruined. And so being able to look at my fellow vets and other men of God and being like, wow, this is what I was supposed to have. And now I do have that, because I can see it physically in the men of God. And now I can say, okay, well, if this is what you guys are like, then my dad's much better because he's teaching you. You know, so it changed my whole life. Just to be able to walk out the door and shake someone's hand and hug someone, you know, without being, you know, wanting to beat someone up or anything, because, you know, it exacerbates to the point where you're just like, I can't deal with anything anymore. I'm not going out this door. I'm not getting out of this bed. You can't make me. And if this world is this way, then I don't want to be in it.
How long did it take you to go through that healing process?
And so when I went through my brain injury and the trauma and everything, I had to go through all of the therapy and all of the stuff myself, trying different medications, whatever that worked, and nothing worked. And I'm like, well, I'm treating my patients with all this stuff and it's not working for me. So God equipped me with tools that actually work. And the thing about this group is I see transformation that I can't even imagine. Like, I couldn't have imagined within my psychiatry training. The transformation happening before your eyes, where there's a huge amount of healing within a short period of time, and I'm like, what's going on here, right? People who are getting rid of baggage that they've carried, not being able to forgive someone for 40 years or receive forgiveness for themselves, and within a 2.5 day weekend, they let it go. Like, and I know it's not about me, and it's not what I've done, and it's about God and God bringing the healing.
That happened to me, and so I carried a lot of hate and resentment and a lot of anger. And when I went through one of the programs that I went through, it was, we were 2 days into it, and I still was holding that hate and anger toward my biological father, my uncle, you know, everybody that had ever hurt me in the past. I was still angry about that, and I let it go, and it blew my mind, because I was like this hardcore, you know, nothing could get to me kind of guy. But Jesus got to me, and I was done. I was 45, 50 year, whatever it was, holding on to that baggage was just gone.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned the importance of forgiveness. With you talking about that, it's important to share, because it's hurting you. You're holding on to it, and it's affecting you the entire time. And it's not about saying, oh, what they did to you was okay. It's about you being able to release that toxic connection to what happened with that experience, and be able to release yourself from that.
And that's the thing, is until I forgave them for what they did to me, I was still holding on to that. And then once I let that go and I forgave them, it was gone. Jesus took that from me. That's no longer my burden. And I tell you, when I did that, do you hear like people say, well, I felt this weight being lifted. I really felt the weight. I mean, it was literally like somebody had put a 50-pound rucksack on my back, and I just could never get out of it. You know, and then when I gave up my burden and I let Jesus take my burden from me, that backpack was gone. That rucksack, it was empty. And I really felt the weight, and it was just, I felt lighter. I felt like when I stood up, I was just gonna keep going. You know, it's a good thing that was a roof, because I would have just went through it, kept bumping my head.
And Rick, I definitely want to hear your story too, but so far I just want to say thank you for what you have shared so far. I don't think it's easy to share these stories, and there's also a stigma in some cultures to having these type of experiences and talking about them, and it's like this whole thing of like, I'm fine, I'm perfect, there's nothing wrong, you know, but if there is something wrong, it's like you can't address it, and when you do, it's like people expect you to still be normal or whatever normal is. So I appreciate that you're being real and what you've experienced and how it affects you, and being able to help other people. And I know you say it's not about you, but you're being used to help other people. So it's amazing what you all are doing. Rick, do you want to share?
Yeah, my experiences were quite a bit different. There's Ellie laughing. I was a Vietnam helicopter pilot. So we faced incredible violence every day. I was with a unit that's 174th Assault Helicopter Company. First thing we did every morning is combat assaults into areas the enemy did not want us. We'd take troops in and go in guns a-blazing, and bullets would be coming back, and then we go, and we drop them off at certain LZs so they can do their operation there to whatever their mission was. But we faced violence every single day. There was bullets coming through the cockpit, through the plexiglass. The plexiglass goes all over the place, 2 over my head, 2 under my seat. It's just crazy. I mean, you faced it every single day. And that was a 1 year, but it was so many. When a helicopter goes into a mission, there's a problem there. There's a gunfight going on. It's not, oh, just go in and drop off some food. That's not what it is. All the LZs were definitely defended, and everything we tried to do, there was fire all the time. We had bullets in the rotor disc every day, through the fuselage into the fuel cell, self-sealing fuel cell. So I faced all this violence every day, and it gave me just an anger, especially when my crew was killed, when they switched them to a different mission. And when I saw my crew dead, then I became a killer, I guess you might say. I'd kill any of the enemy in sight. I give the order, there's 2 machine gunners on either side of the chopper. I give the order, the person dies. So, you know, that's what it was. It was this violent killing every single day. So it's really hard. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. It's a little hard to forget all that stuff. You can't forget it. But the advantage of Ellie and her program, well, my family was just saying, hey, you know, you're kind of acting out a little bit, and Ellie's, there's this tribe thing that's going to happen at our church, so why don't you go? Dad, you know, you're not like you used to be, this or that. My wife first got a hold of her, and then Ellie and I started communicating, and I said, I'm not probably going to talk at all, because I don't want to let anything out, or it'll all come out, and it'll be a disaster, and no, I'm not going to talk about it. And she said, that's okay, talk as little or as much as you want, and whatnot. So that was the big advantage to me in that program, is I'm a person that said I can handle everything. God can do anything, but I don't remember him really doing all that much for me. I pretty much had to do it myself, and I got through Vietnam on myself, and a lot of people died around me, but you know, I got through it. I don't want to share it, I don't want to talk about it, but I was drawn in by Ellie's approach of the whole group thing. It was, like I say, it's comfortable, it's safe. I didn't think it was. I wasn't going to talk, and I didn't talk for a while. But then I started trusting Ellie with the way she was presented the program and the person that she is. I started trusting Ellie, and that made me available to trust God. And little by little, I was able to start sharing things that I haven't talked about for 50 years. So that was a big thing. And little by little, we dealt with various of my violent memories. I mean, there's hundreds of them, so I don't know how many we need to deal with, but we dealt with enough of them where I started feeling, yes, I still had flashbacks at night, wake up. I still had memories and whatnot, but they didn't have the power over me anymore. They weren't, that happened. Actually, it empowered me to help others, because we do group things, and I speak a little bit, and then people come up to me afterwards, hey, I did that too, man. I was shot once and stabbed once. and shot twice and stabbed once, and another one I stepped on a booby trap, and I have a bum leg, I have a fake leg, prosthetic leg. I mean, and they will talk to me, and they'll just start talking about things that, you know, I wouldn't have talked about. I wouldn't have. But once you, with veterans, you trust Ellie, you trust God, and you start trusting the veterans around. Hey, they experience the same things that I experienced, maybe not that much violence, but some violence. And you still have, when you get out, you still have this isolation, you have hypervigilance, you have anxiety, you're just not yourself, you're not normal, you're not okay. Somebody asked me one time, Rick, when do you feel peaceful? And I go, well, I can't remember, ever. And so that's what you're dealt with when you have all this combat stuff going on. But I was able to share with the veterans. It was, I was relaxed then, we were safe. Like Ellie said to me, I said, all this stuff was coming out, and she says, that's okay, I'm safe. And that's a nice response. And I found out that the other veterans were safe as well.
I think that's
And we could share these things with you, and yes, you have flashbacks, and yes, you did not forget them, you know, but they're not dangerous to me anymore. They don't have any power over me anymore. Yeah, that did happen. Maybe I'm going to talk to somebody else that had the same thing. Like one guy at the meeting that was in Vietnam and had problems, and he came up to me and said, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. So we share those ideas, and we can be a lot better. I still don't sit with my back to a window. Yes, one morning I went for my pistol. I can't go to work without my pistol. Oh, I guess I don't need it today. But I don't do that so much anymore. Sorry if I get so emotional.
Good, man. It's all good, dude.
I think that
Now that your program obviously is helping people heal, but it's a continual process. It's not just like, oh, go through it for a week and then you're done.
So the key,
It's ongoing.
the key behind it is shifting your focus, right? Shifting your focus in that isolation, believing the lies that you're hopeless, worthless, helpless, and shifting it to, there's an unconditional love for me that I can experience, and I don't have to block it anymore. I can receive it. I can receive that forgiveness. I can receive that acceptance. And what the enemy intends for evil, God can use for good. God can use that to transform me and to make me wiser and to make me stronger. And I don't have to see my trauma or those stressors as something that disables me, or that's something that takes me out, or that's something that puts me on the sidelines. But I can use that as God uses that to empower me.
Or everyone has their own different experiences that they've had, and it can either turn you into being this person that's going to be out there in the world hurting people because you're hurting, or being able to heal from it and then be someone who's out there healing as well.
Right.
So instead of being worthless, he has a mission for you. It's just a different mission. It's not killing people this time, it's helping.
I get what he's talking about. Law enforcement is the same way. Cops will not open up to anybody other than themselves because they want to make sure that they're not being hurt, they're being understood, because there is a misconception that talking about your feelings is bad. And you know, you're less of a man if you share your story, or you're less of a man if you show emotion. There's a huge stigmatism within military and law enforcement. And the only way to get through that is to relate, to be a part of that community. So, I appreciate you saying what you did, man. That was awesome.
We have a whole week on forgiveness, on moral wounds and moral injury, which I believe is one of the biggest things that keeps PTSD from getting rid of PTSD and really treating it, is because people are holding on to that resentment, even if it's of themselves or other people. And so recognizing, wow, like my sin isn't too hard for Jesus to pay for him to take care of, and that I can't do anything, I can't add anything to become perfect, and it's just a free gift. And so just receiving it and entering into a relationship, right, like a father, and saying that's all it is. And so really, like within tribe, we try to make, you know, everything free so that people can enter into a community where they're unconditionally loved, accepted. There's no strings attached. It's just, hey, we want a relationship with you. We want to get to know you. We want you to get to know us, and we want to have that community.
You know, I felt this overwhelming sense of weakness once I transitioned out of the military, that I was hopeless and I was sad and I was depressed and I was lost and I had no more identity, and I was like, how is it that I can feel this sense of weakness? Like, I was a tough guy in my mind in the Army. 3 tours in Afghanistan and 1 tour in Iraq. You know, I jumped out of airplanes, I slept on the ground, all this hardcore stuff I did for 20 years in the Army. I just thought, you know, I'm a tough guy, I can put all this emotion aside, I can put, you know, all of this junk and baggage that I've been dealing with, you know, essentially my whole life. I can just put it aside, and I'm tougher than those things. And then when I left this group, the military group of like-minded common people, I no longer had, you know, this nucleus of folks that had these similar experiences that I could share with. And it was a really tough time in my life where I had to figure out this forgiveness piece. And it was forgiving myself, and it was understanding the forgiveness. How to forgive myself was through the true forgiveness that I learned through this program, like the true forgiveness that was given to me on the cross. So it was just such a profound moment in this program that made a dynamic shift in my life, and it was absolutely amazing to when going through this program, to just feel, you know, Paul sort of talked this sense of relief of when you get to that point where you are allowing yourself to be forgiven, and you just allow yourself, you know, to get off the ground, get off the mat, and, you know, just allow yourself to you know, come back again. It is absolutely amazing. And, you know, had it not been for this program, you know, I don't know if I ever would have found that again.
But nobody was addressing that something was very sick within my spirit. Something had like tarnished it. There was a sense of like just overbearing darkness all the time, and it was like nobody could address that, you know. So and then you go through, you know, all the secular programs and everything, and no one's telling you, look, like something, you know, there's something more we can do for you. You know, it was more of the same, more medication, more, you know, therapy, and there was never moving forward. And now it's like they can't stop me. I'm constantly, you know, trying to get more involved with the vets up at the VA, and like not having, I mean, I used to get shake before I went to the VA because of just, you know, whatever response that someone might have. Or even just, you know, there was a lot of harping on like I didn't have a full year in service and things like that, and so it was like this struggle for 18 years to get healed from something I couldn't get help. And then there was no barriers to get into Ellie's program. I didn't have to have any parameters. I didn't have to have, you know, a year in service. I didn't have to be retired. It wasn't. You know, and so it was like, okay, well, we'll see where we go with this. But like when my spirit was healed, it was something else. It was like, I am ready to do whatever the Lord sends me to do.
Everything about your life changes. Everything. How you look at others, how you love your wife, everything. When you perform the job, somebody has an issue now, you don't walk away and say, hey, I'll hear your story. They're better.
I came out of this program with a better definition of my own values, and even understanding that I had mine and where they were based. Because like when you come from a background where everything is just crazy all the time, there is no love. Because love isn't patient. Love is, get out of here. I'm busy trying to pay the bills, you know. And then two, what real true grace is. The real true grace of God and how that can manifest in your life. And then just those things, like even being saved and accepting the Lord as my Savior, I didn't have those definitions to really understand. So it gave my mind something to wrap around and say, we know for sure that love is patient, love is kind, long suffering, and to be able to have those definitions to empower myself, I could recognize what was love and what wasn't. And that really helped, so that now I know what love is. I can give it to you, you know? And that's what it was. And that felt like I was doing nothing over and over and over again. And now it doesn't feel like nothing. Now it feels like I have accomplishment, and I know that because of the relationships and how healthy they are. Not that I have a big fancy car, not that I got my house back and my marriage back, because I did it. What I got was something that was priceless. I got my soul back.
And the ability to help others.
Exactly.
And that's what it is. You know, he's training, we're his hands and feet down here and his mouth down here, if you watch what we say. And so he's reproducing people that can help his people. The most hurting people that didn't do anything wrong, they just ended up in combat and kind of messed up. And we can't help it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it. But that's what it is. Now we can help those. So we're duplicating many, many people to help all these veterans that are hurting so bad. Some of the stories I heard the other night, I went, wow, this guy's actually telling me this? And so I can keep a peer relationship with him and talk about it and help him through it. And say, well, I've had some of those things too. How are you feeling? And we can help others. And God is creating an army of us to help those that are in need, the veterans to come back, and where do they go? They get sent to a council and says, well, let's talk about it. That's the last thing I want to do is relive this thing. Am I going to get better at the end? No, we're just going to talk about it. Well, I don't want to relive it without getting better. Yeah. And with Tribe, you relive it to some extent, but you get better at the end. The other night.
Right. The goal of this is to create communities throughout the country, tribe communities, to spread it. So, you know, if people can come here, get trained to be facilitators, go back to their area of the country, or having like a retreat space where people can come in and go through the program so that they can be equipped with the tools and skills and that community and that acceptance and worth and value, and take it back to their part of the country. And so just replicating it so that it's not just 1-2 people here and there, but it's throughout the whole country.
Stress to the point where you want to take your life, there's hope. There is an alternate way. Plug into a church, plug into somebody that can help you get the help that you need, because you're not alone. We're all here together. You know, we're learning together, we're growing together. We can't do this alone. So if you're a veteran and you're out there and you're struggling, just know that you're not by yourself.
Yeah. Call one of us, call Ellie, join a tribe group, whatever. I would just say come and see. Yeah. Because it's going to be much more natural, much safer, much more comfortable than you think it's going to be. And you're not forced to talk about anything until you're ready. But when you are ready, guess what? You get better.
And these groups are for people who don't think they need help. We all have room.
I was really hard on it.
We all have room for growth.
For
For transformation, we all have scars and stressors and things in our lives that we've dealt with. And no one is beyond healing and saving. And I mean, we care for everybody, and that's my mission, is not leaving a brother or sister behind, and really doing whatever it takes to help them find that hope, find that healing, acceptance, and community. Because nobody needs to be left alone by themselves, and they're all extremely valuable and treasures.
See, I think the important thing too to note is that sometimes it doesn't present as a psychosis. Sometimes it presents as a behavior or a life problem. And that's where you get homeless vets, and you get drugs. You get vets that are hooked on drugs, and other sort of things looking for that rush. You know, and if that's you, come see us. We're waiting for you. Get a hold of somebody, because this group can change your life, and it can be, you can be free of all of that.
That's already been mentioned, and I would just say, don't wait.
Yeah.
Like do it now, don't wait, and steer clear of self-destructive behaviors, self-induced, self-destructive behavior.
Isolation.
Yes. Isolation, self-medication, thinking you're better off, by yourself, alone, isolated. None of that works. I can personally attest to that. Like, none of that works. It's when you get out of those shadows, when you get out of the darkness and you get into light, that's where healing starts. And this program is all about light. And it's an opportunity for folks to be surrounded by light, the light of others, and the light of folks that have experienced common things and common scenarios in life. So
Thank you so much again for being here and being a part of letting me interview you and have this conversation. It's